morning. This is Marketing Moms. We are the podcast for entrepreneurs who don't really know how to market. We want to make it easy for you. That's our goal. So I'm Ann Brennan, and this is
Anastasia Van Greshapy.
And we're the Marketing Moms. So we're here to help you. Anastasia, I don't know if you saw over the weekend all the comments we got, but we got several comments. We had several people share last week's post. And they said, oh my God, I learned so much. So that made me really, really happy because that's our goal. It's to give you stuff to learn, right? But it was nice to see people really got a lot of it out of it. So if you didn't listen to that one, go back. We talked about Google My Business and we gave some really good points for how to make sure your Google My Business is up to date. And a couple of people said, I went through mine. I had no idea. I hadn't filled everything out. And that was really nice to see that they really got a lot out of it. So
it's great. Yeah.
I want to remind everybody, we are live this week. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I got Twitter reconnected. For some reason, it was not connected. So we've got that reconnected. That means you can ask questions because we're streaming live. If you are watching this right now, anyway, if you're watching this on Monday morning at 10 a.m., then you can ask questions. Put it in the comments and we will see that and we can answer the questions right here. If you're doing this any other way, email us, message us. Find us on Facebook, find us on Twitter, find us on YouTube, leave us a comment. We will get back to you. That's what we do. We want to make sure we're answering all of your questions. That's our goal. So today we're going to talk about websites that make us cringe. And that happens more often than you would think. We're kind of picky that way, right?
Yeah.
So
well, it's our job. It's our job to do that.
It's your job.
That's our
exactly.
job. So,
exactly. And you're particularly good at that part.
You're particularly good at because I go on there and I'm like, I mean, I think this is as a result of us building websites, right? So we build things. So we want them to look good. We want them to achieve. There's a goal, when you're building a website, whether it's for look and feel, for a copy, whatever it is. So yeah, I'm a little critical of your website.
Yeah. Well, and it just occurred to me that when we first started this, we would build a website and I would say, I'll just write the copy for free as part of the website. And I did that because I don't think I understood quite how valuable that copy is. Mm-hmm. Right. And the copy is so valuable. We're going to get down into that, but it's so valuable. So it's not just having somebody build the website. People think that's what they're going to do. They're going to build a website. They're going to put all your stuff that says who you are on there. And that's going to be it. And then in the beginning, people didn't even ask me what I wrote or how I figured it out. They just didn't care. They're like, I've got a website. So they didn't care. We're going to start with the most important one. We're going to start with mobile friendly websites. So do you want to talk a little bit? Because this is something we're both really passionate about.
Yes, very much so. I mean, and it's been a few years now since Google. So we always talk every week, we talk about Google points, right? And this is the number one thing. If your website is not mobile friendly, you are not showing up in Google search. You just aren't, because they're saying most people are searching on their phones. And if you can't access the website on your phone, then it's not going to rank you. And what that means, by the way, mobile friendly. So it means that when you bring up a website on your phone, it doesn't look like it would on the computer screen where you're having to magnify it and move the screen around to try and be able to read everything that's on the site. It's clear, a website that is mobile friendly will look one way on a computer or desktop or a laptop, and one way on a mobile device like a phone or an iPad. So it changes the layout a little bit. And when you're building sites through Squarespace or WordPress, whatever, you can actually see what they're going to look like in both instances.
It's actually interesting to think about the fact that it took this long for Google to say that, right? Mm-hmm. Because when did the iPhone come out? 12 years ago? It's been 12 years at least.
Probably, yeah.
Right? And once that happened, everything changed. So for years and years, we've still had to go to websites and pinch out and try to figure out, I can't see that, it's too small, it's off the screen, whatever it was. And finally, we can get this on our phone in a way that we can see it. And it's good for you because it's good for your customer to be able to see it. So we're going to actually talk about that in a minute too, why it matters, right?
Yes.
So dated websites. this one to me is, it's not going to affect your ranking. Most of the time it will, if it's running slowly because it's dated, but it will affect the way people look at you, right? Because
Guaranteed.
yeah, because if I look at a website, especially, and I had it happen recently with a high-tech company. This is a high-tech company. I went to it and it just was not a high-tech website. It did not look up to date enough. And it felt like they probably built it in 2001, right? It just was out of date. That will make me cringe, because you want people to know, first of all, that you're still in business. A lot of times when you see a website like that, you're like, oh, maybe they're not even still in business, right? But you want to know that they are staying up to date on things, and especially with a high-tech company. If they're a high-tech company and they're not up to date, that's not a good sign. It's not somebody who I feel like I can trust.
And the thing is, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not good at what they do, because they're probably so focused on their business to making sure that they're doing a great job for everybody else. It's just that they're neglecting themselves, and it doesn't show their capabilities. I mean, we have a client who, in between signing the service agreement and getting onboarded, launched a new website. So when I went in the other day to create some content for their social, I was blown away, because it's like, what a difference it made, because I had seen the website before and I was underwhelmed. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't one that I'm like, hey, you really need to build another new website. But I was like, yeah, you could. And then he said he was working on it. So when they finally onboarded and I saw it on Friday, I was like, oh, excellent.
Yeah.
So it made such a big difference.
It really does. It really does. And it's just so much. Your website's very, very valuable. So take the time to pay attention to it. And if you can't pay attention to it yourself, hire somebody who can pay attention to it. And I'm not saying that, by the way, I'm not saying that because we will do that. I'm not saying that because I will make more money off of that. Because the truth is, if you called me and said, hey, Ann, can you manage my website? Chances are I'm going to introduce you to one of our partners and say, here, talk to one of these people, because that's not something we do, but it is that important.
Yeah. So I think it really, if you think about it, you really you want to stay up and you want to stay fresh. And with a dated website, you just look old, and you're just not appealing to people, like the person that your customer, who's already your customer, who knows what kind of service or product you have, and knows your customer service and knows all these things about you, they're going to stay loyal, most likely. If they've already been loyal, having an old website isn't going to impact them. But for a new customer, and everybody is always looking for new people. I mean, you can't be in business with one set of clientele and never trying to, do better. So, and if you're listening to this podcast, you want your business to succeed, and therefore you're listening to try and get, some information on how to best market your business. So having it dated, just take a look at it. Have somebody else take a look at it.
Yeah, it's especially somebody who is not, your mom. Don't ask your mom, unless she's a critical mom, and then maybe you can ask her. But find somebody who's less likely to say, "Oh, it looks wonderful, honey." Find somebody who's going to be honest. And for us, we're very honest. I see them and I go, "Oh, sweetie, oh, we need to change your website." Right? It's the first thing I say. "Oh, sweetie."
And there was one potential client last year whom we said, we won't do your social until you've spent the money on your website.
Yeah, and because it makes no sense.
We're like, we're not going to just take your money, because when they go to your website to try and make reservations or, purchase something, they're not going to be able, it's not going to work. So therefore, all that time and effort and money that you've spent on social isn't worth it. So I mean,
absolutely,
there will be people that will take your money and not worry about, because they're like, this is my lane. I'm just doing their social media. I don't have to worry about everything else. But we see the big picture, and you definitely have to pay attention to your website.
Absolutely. All right. So user-friendly websites this is a pet peeve of mine. I cannot stand a website that doesn't let me do what I want to do. And one of the things I find interesting is the ones that are the worst are the ones that don't let me buy, right? Mm-hmm. They are an e-commerce site, but I have to click through 5 places before I can just say, buy this. I want to just click and buy it. And I want it to just come to my house. That's how I want it to work. Or I want to click and I want to get reservations now. I don't want to be sent to 3 different websites. And by the way, you have to sign up for this. And when you do sign up for this, you're going to start getting emails from this company over here. I don't want all that. I want one easy click. So how easy is your website to navigate? Can people find what they want to find? Are they my son just said to me yesterday, Mom, where do you think, I forget what it was. I think it was their calendar of events. And he's like, I'm on this website. Where do you think you would find the calendar of events? How am I going to find that? And I was like, and we looked and looked, and finally, I'm like, scroll down to the very bottom and see what's down there. And that's where they had it. It wasn't easy. Make it easy. Find some easy things. Do you have particular things that bug you about the
I
websites
think very cluttered websites, like having drop-down folders with a lot of information. Like it's what you're saying, right? Like if you go to ASMM, for instance, I'm going to go to our site real quick before I misspeak. We have on the top, we have welcome, about, services, take a course, contact us. There's 5 things on the top. Now, if you click down on about, that's where you're going to find our blog. That's where you're going to find a little bit about us. That's where there's probably 7 or 8 things, testimonials, recommended reading, services. Every one of our service has a page, but it's very clear as to what each thing is. So whatever you're looking for, you're going to find it, because if we're going to preach it, we got to do it, right? So
exactly.
You can find things on our site because of that. And that really irritates me when I go and there's like 15 things along the top, and it's like, no, you've got to declutter. Don't give people a headache because they're looking at too much from the beginning. Step by step.
Absolutely. All right. This is one that is a real pet peeve for us. And we talked about it earlier, is your copy. People don't put thought into their copy, and it matters. So one thing we do, we have a couple of different copywriters, and we will bring them in and we'll say, hey, we're not going to tell you what these people do. We're not going to tell you anything about them. I want you to go to the website and tell me what they do. And most of the time, really 95% of the time, they go there and they're like, I think they do roofs, I think. But I can't tell you what kind of roofs, and I don't know whether it's commercial or residential, or whatever it is. They cannot figure out. Are they a Maryland company? I don't know. I don't know what their service area is. So there's so many things that you're not answering if you're not putting the copy in. So
yeah, and that's what when I mentioned the client with the new website, the thing that blew me away was the copy. The copy was so good that, I was creating posts for their social media. A lot of the time we have to be very creative on our end to try and get the point across that we're trying to make for them. And, because their copy is not very clear. So we want to clear it up a little bit for their social media audience. But this was perfect. It was so clear. I was actually able to copy and paste some of them and just create the graphic for it, which was great because it's reinforcing what they already have said. And
absolutely.
So it's this whole idea of repurposing content, which we've already talked about. We'll go over and over and over about this. If you can have content that you can use on your website, and that's your copy that you can use in your social, that you can use in your newsletters, that you can use in videos, having that consistent messaging is very important. And that's the copy on your website is where it starts.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to make sure that they know who you are and what you do. That is hugely important. And I actually was typing, you may even heard me type this out. What do you wish people knew? Right? Because a lot of people will say, oh gosh, I wish people knew such and such. And I'm like, you have a website. Why isn't it on there? Why don't you have that written in a way that people can find it? Right? So it's really, really important to let them know, make sure your copy reflects everything that you are, who you are, what you do, what you stand for, who your people are. Think about all those things you wish people knew, right? We do a lot. One thing that we do, and I gosh, I hope it's on our website, but it just occurred to me. One thing that we added and we haven't added a page for is we work with, it used to be that we would get a client that'd come to us for social media and they'd say, hey, who should we use for SEO? And we'd point them in that direction. And they'd say, well, who should I use for graphic design? And we'd point them in that direction. Now we don't do that. We say, why don't we manage it for you? That way you don't have to have 10 different people you're calling. You call me, I'll get everybody else in line behind you. And so we meet with them. So it's basically a CMO service, but that's not on our website, right? Because we just added it, but that's going to go to something else we're going to say in just a little bit, which is I'm skipping one, but websites should be active. That means as you're adding, make sure you are adding that to your website. As you're changing, make sure you're changing your website to reflect it. So what are some of the things, Anastasia, for that we notice with people? Some of the things either they're missing or some of the things that they could be adding that they don't.
Well, a big one for me, because we have a client that did this, I don't know, 4 years ago. They changed their logo. It's still the same logo on his website. And,
right.
I will hound you for a little while, but then at a certain point, I will just be like, okay, if you're okay with it, that's fine. But, you change your logo, you change your branding, you change your colors, whatever you're changing, change your website,
Exactly.
Make sure that's updated. If you have employees on your website that are no longer working for you, you need to change your website. I have my physical therapist used to work in an office in Annapolis, and she's still showing up on their website, which is great for them because people that are looking for her are calling them. But that's not good for her because she's gone out on her own and has her own private practice. And I mean, she did call the other day and asked them to remove her. It's
good for them for a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Because the truth is, if they go and she's not there, they're going to go looking for her, and that's just a reminder that she is out there somewhere. Oh yes. Yeah, she moved, right? Yeah. So having old employees on there is not a good idea. Yeah. And one of the ways to be really active and active with your website is to add a blog. And the reason that matters is you're adding more information about who you are. And that's huge. One thing we suggest to our clients is to create a blog that answers questions. So if somebody's saying, how can I build my website? Have a blog that answers that questions. How can you build your website? What are the different options they have for building a website? And it doesn't always have to lead back to you. So maybe we write a blog that says that. And we're like, well, you could build one yourself on Wix or Squarespace. You could go to somebody who builds really big websites and is going to charge you $15,000 or $20,000, and this is what they do. You can go to somebody who builds beginner websites, right? And we'll give them all those options. And maybe one of those options does say, yeah, and give us a call. We can build your website. But they shouldn't all be that way. Just answer the questions because people are likely to find you when they look it up. We say this with plumbers, right?
Yeah.
Why is there water on the outside of my toilet bowl? Well, it's condensation. Why is there condensation there? Well, when they go to look for it, they get this answer, and then they might browse around on your website, or they might call you and say, hey, how do you fix this? I got this problem. I saw it on your website. How do I fix it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when we're meeting with a client and then we're talking about blogs, I'm like, what are they asking you? When they call you on the phone and they're asking about your services, what exactly are they asking you? Because if what they're exactly asking you could be what they're typing into Google. If they're typing a sentence into Google, for instance, with your toilet example, why is there water on the outside of my toilet bowl? Then that's a great blog. For a great one for us, I mean, we've said this before, is our Google My Business blog. Why? Because people are calling us from all over the place because we have a blog about these Google My Business phone calls that are not legit. So anytime the phone is ringing, take a mental note, write it down. Like if you're like, oh, that was a really good question, write it down, write a blog about it. You can also go into your Google My Business and have a look and see how people found you. So if they found you, it'll show you if they found you directly by searching for you specifically, or if they found you organically. And if they found you organically, what did they search? And take those things and write blogs about them.
Absolutely. So one thing that gets me is when you go to a website and there's the phone number and the address and the social is nowhere to be found.
Oh,
Um, it's horrible.
don't
It's
get me started.
horrible. So, or they have the phone number and you can't click on it to call. That happens all the time. Or they have the address and you can't click on it to get directions.
Mm-hmm.
So go and check those things out on your website. I'm going to give you some homework in just a minute. We are going to do that.
You have to check
But
them regularly too, because links break. They break.
yes,
And your social media needs to be everywhere. It should be in your footer or your header on every page.
absolutely.
We do the social media for the chamber that here in Anne Arundel County, and whenever people come and renew their membership or they become new members of the chamber, we put up a post about them. So I will go to their website to find their social media so that I can link to it. Let me tell you,
Right.
I'm not going to go searching for it. Like, I'm not going to go and try and find where it is. If you don't have it on your website, I am not going to go looking for it. If there are
Well,
some
and
people
part
that
of
I
that
know,
is,
so I'll put a little bit more effort into it. But if it's just, Joe Schmo construction, I'm like, dude, you got to
and
have
you
this
go
on.
look, and there are
Yeah.
20 Joe Schmo constructions on Facebook, and you're like, well, which one is this? I don't know. I can't tell.
Because if I tag the
Right.
wrong one, then we hear about it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So you have to think about what you're putting up there. The other thing is that gives you the link back, right?
Mhm.
It's showing that you're active. You're not just a selfish site out there on your own. You are linking back to other sites. It's just one more way to link back to another site.
And if you have social and you're putting things up on social, that is repurposing it. Like, repurpose it. Put it on your website. If you're on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, I guarantee you have your website on there. If you don't have your website on your social, then you need to go do it right now.
Yeah.
But so you're linking to your website because you see the importance of your website. Well, if you're active on social, you're seeing the importance of your social. Make sure that is linked correctly, because a lot of people will put the icons on their website, but they don't realize they actually have to go and set them up. So what it does is it sends directly back to Facebook, like just regular Facebook and Twitter. Like, it's not linking to any page. It just links back to those platforms.
Or worse than that, I think Wix does it. I'm sure Wix does it, and
Oh
I know
yeah,
MailChimp does it,
yeah,
where they fill it in, and if you don't fill it in, they've got it filled in so that it goes to their page on
to their
Facebook.
stuff. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so pay attention to that. And these are things that we can help you with if you have a question. Again, you can always ask us questions. We love to answer them. We're not ones who say, I mean, I'm not going to sit down with you for an hour for free. That's, and I'm going to advise you
We're a
right now to
business.
not sit down
Yeah.
with people for an hour for free and let them pick your brain, because your brain is a valuable resource. But I will give you quick answers. And Anastasia will give you quick answers. People know that. I give free advice a billion times a day.
Mm-hmm.
It's just because I think it's important. I think it's important to help small businesses, and they'll remember me later. I'm just not going to spend an hour doing it because I'm kind of busy. And because I don't want other people to do that either. So I do want to go back. Oh, actionable item. So we were going to give you an actionable item, and Anastasia just said, particularly make sure you're linked on your social down at the bottom. Make sure your your directions are there so that people can click on your address and get directions to you. Make sure your phone number's there. So that's a good thing. But I want to start really basic, really, really basic. I want you to go and find your password. And if you do not know your password, I want you to go get it from whoever might have it. And I'm going to tell you, this happens far more than you would know, you would guess. That just happened to us recently. And this was with social, but it's a similar thing. Somebody hired us and called the company who they've been working with and said, I need my password. And it was a huge runaround for over a week. They did finally get it, but it was a runaround because the guy's like, but we'll give you it for this much, and we'll do this, and we'll do that, and just trying to sell him. Meanwhile, holding on to his passwords. So it worked out in this case. It doesn't always work out. We've had to rebuild people's websites because other companies have refused
Mm-hmm.
to relinquish that information. So go find your password.
And make sure
And
you're in control. And if you're giving access to somebody else on Squarespace, you can give contributor access. So when we build a website for somebody, once we hand it over, we completely relinquish ownership of the site to the owner. And if they choose for us to stay on to maintain it, or if we need to get on it for any particular reason, then we can be contributors. So make sure, and this is just flat out rule, and we're going to say it a million times because we've seen it so many times with people. Make sure you own your stuff, especially your website and your domain. So if it's on GoDaddy or wherever, make sure you're the one that has complete control over that. Don't let somebody
absolutely.
else hold you hostage. You feel like, oh, I can't leave them because of this. That's not right. You should
It's not.
be, regardless of who you're working with, like Ann always says, if she gets eaten by a bear, whoever we're working with has access to their stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So next week we're going to talk about SEO basics. And it just occurred to me as I was looking at the banner here that people will say to me, "Oh, I don't have SEO because people won't. These companies want $700 just to start with them." And what we want you to know is that you have the capability of having, optimizing your search engine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Optimizing it for your search engine. You have that ability on your own. Now, yes, there are people who can do much more, but there are some basic things you can do to improve your search engine your SEO. Okay, there's some basic things that you can do to improve your ranking. And we're going to give you some of those next week. So this is going to be one that I'm going to say right from the start. Actually, you know what? Every one of these is this way. Pull your car over, pull out a notebook, start writing it down, because we're going to give you things that really matter. Today, we gave you things that really matter, right? You can go back on this. We talked about websites that make us cringe. Go back and look, is my website mobile friendly? If it's not, that's a top priority. We had somebody who, you remember this, Anastasia, we told him your website's not mobile friendly. He took 6 months to make sure it was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no. Right now, nobody's seeing it. So it doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be out there. So make sure it's mobile friendly and then work on the perfection, right? If it's out of date, if you have not updated it in the past, I would say 4 years, but definitely 5 years. If you have not updated it in that amount of time, it needs to be updated. Websites changed considerably about 5 years ago, right when I started this business. 5 years ago, they started changing a lot. Make sure it's user friendly. Have somebody look at it, not you, not your kids. Have somebody else look, maybe a kid. Actually, kids are good because they can always find something wrong with what you do, right? So have them look at it and see what you're not doing that would make it easier for somebody to use. Make sure you have clear copy. Tell people who you are, what you do, what you're all about. Give them all of that. Make sure they can click through to your phone number. Make sure they can click through to your address. Make sure they can click through to your social. All of those things should be live. And then make sure you're active on it. All of these things are really important. And that's our goal each week, is to give you stuff that you can go, oh, I can do this. I can do this.
One more thing I want to mention is take a look at your local employment. Like in Anne Arundel County in Maryland, we have the Anne Arundel County Economic Development. So see if there's any kind of economic development grants in your area, because through COVID, there were quite a few that came out where people were giving money trying to help local small business there. And actually somebody from my BNI group was in just that. I told him, I was like, your website really sucks, dude. And there's a grant that you can get it built. And I told him, I was like, I'm not telling you for me to build it. I'm telling you because your website's terrible.
And I just have to say, Anastasia, this is part of that free advice thing. Anastasia told him this for how many months? Months and months.
Maybe even over a year. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Your website is horrible. You can't.
I didn't say it that way. I was like, you really could improve on it.
Well, that's
But
not what you told me.
when the grant came out, that's when I was like, okay, now you have no excuse. The money is there. They will give it to you to build. I was like, your website is now. That's when I said your website is horrible. I was hinting at it, and then finally I was like, no, done.
Get your website done.
And he is so grateful because it didn't cost him anything, and he got a new site. So go and have a look. See what grants there are available to you, and if there's not one, keep an eye out. Because they do come out with, they are trying to help small businesses. So see how you can take advantage of grants like that.
Yeah, actually, we should do a whole thing on the economic development area, in your area. And how, gosh, what a difference it makes. I will tell you, I just told my husband this about 2 weeks ago. I was at a networking event out in Montgomery County, and I'm just going to put Montgomery County out there. And it was a politician, and he said, well, when are you going to move your business to Montgomery County? And I was like, well, I'm not. You guys have the worst economic development that I've seen. And you're taxing and you're trying to ruin businesses out here. I would never bring my business out here. How do I know this? Because I'm in Anne Arundel County, and they do so much to support us. It has been phenomenal, the things that Anne Arundel County does to support small businesses. So when you're starting your business, look at your counties, look at your surrounding counties, and see if you're in an area that's going to treat you well. And if not, look at putting your office in a different area, even if that means you have to commute, because I have to commute 45 minutes every day each way. So, which is why I'm working from home today. So, all right. I want to talk to you about the blog again. We want to always leave you with something else. So our something else is always going to be about the blog. You can go to asmmdigital.com/blog, and we have so many things up there. We post once a week, something new, sometimes twice a week. If I decide that I personally want to write something, I have a copywriter that writes the rest of it. But the one this week is all about finding your target audience. People have a hard time with this, but if you don't know who you're talking to on social media, if you don't know who you're talking to on your website, how are you going to reach them in the way that they want to be reached, right? We've talked about this a lot. My teenage son is going to react differently to copy than my 75-year-old mother, right? It's going to be different. So make sure that you know who you're talking to. It makes a huge difference. If you're talking to a computer geek, you can start throwing out words that are completely, nobody's going to understand except for a computer geek. But if that's not who you're talking to, if you're talking to a great example, IT companies will often use all this tech speak. But the truth is, the people they're trying to reach are business owners that don't know the first thing about their IT. And so they read that and they go, I don't know. They want you to talk to them in a way that they understand, and they go, yeah, I need that. That's what I need, right? So go to the blog, see what it is. See the blog, that one for finding your target audience. There's other blogs over there too. I love my blog personally, and I think you'll find a lot of information over there. Anastasia, do you have anything else before we sign off?
I don't. I think that this was a good thing. I hope that you are not overwhelmed, but this is very important. But I feel like everything that we talk, our whole plan for our podcast list is everything's important. So that's why take it bite by bite and just start off simple. With what Ann said, find out your passwords, make sure you're on there, and then make sure that everything's clickable and everything's linked correctly. So
absolutely. And I'm going to go back to the one thing we say over and over again, which is get a password vault. Don't write it down in a spreadsheet. Don't write it down in a little book. Don't put it on a sticky sheet. Get a password vault. We use 1Password. I love it. It's very helpful. Get it. And I will tell you, I'm just going to throw my husband under the bus here. Over the weekend, we were working on Burgers and Bands things, and he's like, so how do I find such and such? And I'm like, and I told him it's in this app. And he's like, so what's the password for that again? I'm like, you have a password vault. Use your password vault. So I actually wouldn't tell him. I'm like, go in, look at your password vault.
Did he set it up? Because he did. He did not have it set up a couple weeks ago. Because
I'm pretty sure.
I was like, because he had to put a password in at Burgers and Beds, and he was like, and I was like, isn't anyone password place? And he was like, no. And I was like, we set that up years ago. You need to get that thing up and running. So I'm glad to hear that he got it up and running.
Yes. So Password Vault, everybody, please use it. Okay. I hope you guys have a great week. We have a busy week here. It's going to be nice and cool. So I think we're going to enjoy it. So have a great week, everybody.
Have a great week.